on this demonstration I'll be working from this photograph. As you can see, there's not very much colour in there, so I need to add some colour myself, but it is quite a strong composition, and that's what I'll be using for this painting, and I'll generate my own colours. Right, okay, on my palette I've got a variety of colours. I've got new gamboge, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, Payne's grey, and in this corner, when I need it later, a touch of green to warm the foreground up. I'm going to start with the sky. As you saw in the photograph, the sky is quite dramatic. Although it was monochromatic, I want to add some nice colours into this sky. So I'm going to start by adding this new gamboge, which is a beautiful yellow colour. I'm going to bring it down into the foreground as well, and I'm just at the moment adding this colour throughout the painting. So I've got some link between the foreground and the background, some consistency throughout the painting. What I want to do now, that's quite wet, as you can see, it's running down the paper and it's not evenly spread. I've got some white areas left on the paper. What I want to do now is add some of that burnt umber to that gamboge, and it'll give me a lovely golden brown colour. I just want to get a really warm sky. I'm going to bring it in quite strong from either side, leaving this area quite bright. This is where the tree will be, if you remember the photograph, on the left hand side, and the path will come down and over the hillside here. What I want to do now is take a nice strong Payne's grey with a touch of brown, which is the burnt umber, and it'll give me a lovely warm grey for the sky cloud. I want to put some quite strong cloud in this painting, a little bit more brown in there. I want to put some quite strong cloud in there because the drama in this is all about light and dark. So my sky's just about finished now. I'm going to leave that as it is. That's where the tree will go. I'm quite happy with that. It's running down in places, and I've got to leave that to soften off and not be tempted to keep going back in and adding colour. That's the sky finished. While it's still damp, on the picture there's some hills in the distance. I'm going to use a blue with a touch of the brown to give me a grey. I want a cool grey because it's in the background, but I don't want it too wet. So I'm just going to put this distant hillside in the background. Use a damp brush now. I'm just going to use the damp brush to take some colour out so that this is quite pale, this distant hill. And it is quite a way off, and it's nice and wet coming down into this foreground, which I quite like. Use a damp brush now, just drying it on the towel. Always rest a towel on the table, by the way, then I just stab my brush onto the towel to dry the water off of the brush. What I want to do now is put some green into this foreground. I'm just going to take straight out of my olive green, quite a weak mixture, and I'm going to warm it up with a touch of brown. That'll give me a nice warm green colour. And I want to create the effect of a hillside, very slight slope coming up and over into this third of the painting here. So very quick brush strokes using the sharp edge of the brush, just bring that field into that area there. And that just gives the impression of this field coming across from this right hand side. Okay, there's some branches and trees poking up on the left hand side here, just above where the two people will be walking along the path. So I'm just going to drop those in now while the painting's still damp. What that will do, it'll spread and give the impression of a nice soft edge with lots of branches growing up into that area there. And that's where the path will be, so there'll be a couple of people walking down there. I'm just going to strengthen that as I come forward with some Payne's grey. So it's quite strong paint now, and I'm just adding this dark strong paint to emphasise this edge of the path as it comes towards this bottom left hand corner. A little bit more warmth in there now, and I've got a variety of colour in there, which is fine. Bring this path edge right down. Now the other path edge will come down there, and I want some softness in there as it goes up into the distance, but as it comes forward, of course, it'll get larger and also become quite strong in colour. Well, I'll strengthen that up later, and that disappears off over the hillside. The grasses also get quite warm around the path centre, so I just want a warm colour now, which is new gamboge and mixed with burnt umber will give me a nice warm greeny brown colour. I just want to put some nice edge along that path, and remember it gets bigger as it comes forward, and the same on this side. Comes from this side, comes in and just generates a nice line where I can later on add some details for this path that disappears off over the hillside. Okay, that's the background colours done. I just need to let that dry now. Okay, the painting's dry. What I want to try and do now, there's a fence comes in from the right hand side, and it's a great locator for depth and distance. So I'm just adding in very pale colour first, and then as I go up this hill, obviously the top of the fence is getting higher, but the bottom of the fence is actually getting shorter and shorter and getting closer together until they disappear off over the hillside. That's given me now the sort of line that I want, and I can start to strengthen that. I've mixed a very strong mix of burnt umber, and I'm just going to add this burnt umber to this pale colour that I put on earlier. I'm going to darken that in a moment with some Payne's grey, but at the moment I just want some nice warm brown, and as it goes into the distance it fades in colour and almost disappears. And you can see that definitely goes over that hillside. I'm bringing these base of these posts down to where this soft grass area that I painted earlier finishes, and then I'm going to take just a neat Payne's grey, quite strong, with a touch of burnt sienna, which will give me a very dark brown colour. So I've now got my very dark brown, and I just want to touch that to the right hand side of these posts. In the foreground they'll be quite wide, as you can see, but as they go further into distance they will get narrower, and also this dark will begin to fade. So I've now lightened it slightly as I go into the distance, until, as we said earlier, it almost disappears. Just strengthen up one or two of these near posts so we have definitely got depth. Okay, so there's the nice guide leading us in. I'm just changing to a different type of rigger brush. This is a rigger brush with a very thin point on the end, and I'm just taking quite a weak mixture of dark colour just to add some wire between these fences. And as this wire comes closer, obviously it's further apart, so it's quite far apart in the foreground, but as they go further distant they get smaller and closer together. Okay, so there's the effect. I just want to create the barbed wire effect, and that's quite simple. I'm just going to put a few spots, very random, around this wire so that we've got a barbed wire fence. It's very quick. Don't be neat with this because they are quite random, and as we said before, as they go into the distance they almost disappear. Okay, so there we are, that's the foreground. On this right hand side I want something coming in from there, but I'll do that at the end I think. What I need to do now is to paint this tree coming up on the left hand side of the painting. So I'm going to take quite a pale brown. It's probably on a strength of 1 to 10 about a 7, 6. I'm just going to paint something coming out of this softness of these trees, starting at the top of where these trees are quite soft. Just strengthen the colour slightly and just running these trees from that soft area, as you can see. So from the tops of the bushes I'm running these trees up into that wonderful rich coloured sky. Now I'm going to take some more branches, quite long and thin, and add to these trees. Very quick rough strokes because I don't want it to look too neat. This is quite a strong bush that's leaning over the path. And what I can do then is change brushes and add lots of tiny little thin branches to the ends. And I'll use a 1.5 inch flat for this, and I'll press it into my palette and get some brown grey colours in there, mixing all the colours together. And I've now got a brush that's ideal. It's very rugged and very rough, ready for dropping in colour onto the top of these branches. I'm just going to paint them in the way the branches would grow. And you can see now this is adding light and dark areas to the tops of these trees, and it just finishes the tree nicely and makes it look like there's lots of little branches sticking out the tops of this wonderful set of trees. I want also something on the tops of those bushes, so just coming out the tops of there I'm just going to run the same brush stroke, a little stronger paint this time, Payne's grey, stabbing into the palette, which really does ruin your brushes, and I'm just going to put in some foreground grass along the edge of this path. There we go. I want to do the same around these posts, so I'm just adding some grasses with this mix of colours. It's all dark colours. Because I'm running the brush around in those variety colours, on the ends of these branches, on the end of these bristles, will be a variety of colours, which adds interest to this foreground. So I'm just putting in something at the base of those posts. It runs all the way up almost to the end, but as we go further into the distance, it's very pale now and stabbing into the towel and taking it and softening as we go into the distance. Okay, so we've now got some grasses along the edge of this path. I'll just take some warm colours and warm that path up, or those grasses up, as it comes forward. So I've got some nice green going in there now, which is a mix of this gamboge with a touch of blue, and it gives me a lovely green, and I've added more interest now, more grasses, more colour into this foreground. Just bring that down. I just want to increase the interest in the path a little bit by adding a dark grey, but it's quite watery, it's quite runny, so it's very wet, and I'm just going to put some interest in this path, and as it comes forward just widen the track. Again, a little bit of warmth in the foreground, and I've got some interest there in this foreground path. This is being painted in real time, by the way. I do find paintings like this need painting very, very quickly, just to make sure you've got that spontaneity in the paint. I'm just adding some dark along this cutout in the path where the tractor's been running, and just adding some interest in this foreground. It's quite dark in the foreground, but as we said, as it goes into the background, it gets lighter and paler. The shadow from the tree will be coming down here, so I'm not going to bother with that. I'm also quite happy with the way those posts finish amongst that rough grass, so I'm okay with that so far. What I want to do is add something to balance up the tree on this side, so I'm going to take a nice dark brown colour, and I'm going to bring some tree bush into this right hand side. I should probably put some leaves on this one, some autumn leaves. Just bringing these in and around this bottom right hand corner. Again, you can see I'm being very quick with this, because the neater I am with it, the more contrived it will look, and I want it to look quite natural, and these things are quite messy naturally, so that's what I want to create. That's added a nice balance to that distance tree. If I take the brush now, stab it in to the palette with a nice warm colour, and then just touch the corners of the brush into this foreground bush, I'll create, and then just add water, I'll create a very nice warm looking bush that brings that really well forward. I've got a splash in there, I don't know if you can see it, and the best way to get rid of that is with a small piece of damp tissue, just a little bit of water on there, and just hold it on the paper and take it off, and it's gone. And I can do that because the background's dry. Okay, so I need to let that dry completely now before I add a couple of people walking down the path. Okay, I'm just mixing up quite a dark colour now, but it's not black, but it's very dark green. There we go. And just to add a couple of people, I don't want the people to be too detailed, but I do want to make sure I locate them in the right sort of area. So I'm going to put them in here, probably there. So I want quite small heads. The smaller their heads are to start with, the better, because you can always increase the size of the head, but once you've painted it on, it's very difficult to decrease. So I've done 2 bodies and 2 heads. I'm just going to do very long thin legs as they disappear off into the distance. Maybe there should be some shadow under there because the light's coming from here, so I'll just run a little bit of a shadow on this side. Make them a little bit more romantic. They look a bit as if they've fallen out, and they're quite far apart at the moment, so I'm just going to bring them closer together, and because it's quite cold I'm going to give them a warm winter coat. There, that's much more romantic. Maybe there's a little dog, so just put a dog shape in there, and a little lead, and a bit of shadow from the small dog there they're taking for a walk. There we go. So painting finished. Let's have a closer look. Well, that's the picture that I worked from. As you can see, it's quite blue, but it is quite a nice combination of of tone and shape. So I decided to use that tone and shape to create this finished painting. I do like it a lot actually, it's come out really nice. As you can see, the cloud is very effective, allowed to run down and painted very quickly. The tops of the trees have been added to just with the edge of a large flat brush, and then you can see the detail in the path that was added very rapidly just to give some sort of track. And there's the couple that I added at the end walking the dog. You can see on the right hand side a bit of interest to bring forward using warm colours, and the posts and the barbed wire fence really do look quite effective. Well, I hope you enjoyed that demonstration, and why not have a go? It's a fairly straightforward painting and I'd love to see your results. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and look forward to seeing you return. Bye for now.